Hello, good evening. You're welcome to Business Now, proudly supported by Absa Bank Uganda. And this week we turn our attention to one of the most important conversations regarding this country's economic future and the implications in the newly unveiled 84 trillion shillings national budget. Presented last week, the budget places strong emphasis on the full monetization of Uganda's economy, wealth creation, industrialization, and positioning this country for higher and more inclusive growth. But beyond the headlines and the figures, what does the budget mean for businesses, investors, entrepreneurs, and you, the ordinary Ugandans? Are the allocations sufficient to unlock productivity, create jobs, and accelerate economic transformation? And what challenges remain as government seeks to balance growth ambitions with rising expenditure pressures, especially inflation? Tonight, we bring you highlights and the key insights from the post-budget dialogue hosted by Absa Bank, where policymakers, economists, business leaders, and industry experts were unpacking the opportunities and realities behind the country's spending plan. And as we focus on building prosperity, Absa is also rewarding you customers through its Island Escape Getaway campaign, offering travel experiences to customers and use your Absa debit and credit card. Okay, I'm Malcolm Musime. Welcome to Business Now. First, take a look at what's happening in the global markets, because investors across the world are closely watching signals from the United States Fed Reserve on the future direction of interest rates, and any indication that rates could remain higher for longer may strengthen the dollar and tighten global financial conditions. Let's bring it a little bit back home and what it means, because the stronger dollar can increase debt servicing costs for countries like Uganda, which have a very high debt burden, and for African governments putting pressure on local currencies and raise the cost of imports ranging from fuel to industrial inputs. Number two, global oil prices remain sensitive to geopolitical developments in key producing regions, with traders assessing potential supply disruptions and their impact on energy markets. And what this means is for oil importing countries, again for Uganda, high crude prices could increase fuel and transport costs, adding inflationary pressures. Now, oil exporters may benefit from improved export earnings across the continent, although volatility creates planning challenges. Fresh economic data from China is being scrutinized by global investors, and for signs of recovery in the world's second largest economy. Demand trends from China remain a key driver of commodity markets. This is why we should be caring about this story, because China is a major buyer of Ugandan commodities, including copper, cobalt, iron, ore, and agricultural products from other countries as well. Stronger Chinese demand can support export revenues, while weaker growth may weigh in on commodity prices and foreign exchange earnings across the continent. So that's it on the global front. Let's bring it back home, and now is the Absa National Media Group post-budget dialogue held in Kampala to share experiences and views of different actors and stakeholders in the economy about the financial year 26-27 budget.
On behalf of Absa, we are very honored to welcome you yet again for the 5th edition, where we get to dissect the budget. We created this forum to help us unpack the budget figures. We recognize that the budget is just a direction. It is about translating policy into a practical dialogue and what that actually means for our businesses. As we mark this 5th edition, we need to involve ourselves in what the budget means as policymakers, as regulators, as the private sector, the academia, and industrial leaders. The national budget just tells a story. It goes beyond numbers. This forum seeks an opportunity to unlock the challenges that we could confront ahead. It is a conversation where we are renewing our optimism to ensure that the projections that have been highlighted, the oil production, the investment in infrastructure, the productivity makes sense to our business As you've all seen, for the first time, we're talking about double digit after a long time. 6% GDP growth to 10.4% in terms of expectation. How do you as a business tap into this? The government is also looking at fiscal consolidation. It is looking at reducing domestic borrowing from 11.4 to 9, such that they lessen the pressure on domestic credit. The success of a budget is measured by the allocation and the implementation into how we develop our infrastructure, how we pay our suppliers, and making our businesses competitive. We need to assess how does this economic growth translate into jobs for our people. How do we support entrepreneurs and SMEs to fully capture the emerging opportunities? How do we strengthen the resilience and competitiveness of our businesses? Government, of course, is a critical part in landing this and providing sound economic policy. As the private sector, we are challenged to invest more and create jobs. We need to be part of this optimism that is coming through.
So first oil has come. So come FY26, FY27, we actually have production. But the global reality has to be considered, okay? Uganda is a net entrant into this space. That's so in terms of competition of pricing, in terms of, we even have emerging producers already. So there's competition around that. So we need to see how we are going to come into this space and be a producer that is reaping the benefits of what we had, we've projected ourselves to need. Then, of course, you have timely completion of the projects. So like I said, we've been promised first oil by July. Let's see how quickly that comes online. Let's see how quickly EACOP comes online. So there are a couple of things that need to be considered before we actually say we are now exporting, we are now getting revenues out of the production of oil. So the oil prices, everyone looks at that and they're like, yes, the Iran oil is here. It's happening to us. A lot of times, sometimes Ugandans don't think that the things that happen outside Uganda don't impact them. But now, looking at the oil, the pump price, we know that war has impacted us. And unfortunately, because of this current war, fertilizer prices are expected to also go up. When we move away from the geopolitical, we also, what's our discussion right now? Ebola. Ebola is the discussion. So people in this room, people in Kampala, they are like, Ebola is not true. Unfortunately, the world thinks otherwise. Okay? So while in Uganda we may not think that Ebola is something that is here, the rest of the world, I don't know if you saw those initial reports when they were reporting about Ebola and said there are about 800 cases in DRC and Uganda. You see, there was that, and it scared the world because they saw, oh my God, 800 cases. How many confirmed deaths? And this is happening in DRC and Uganda. So there was always that linkage. Now they've stopped reporting like that, but the damage is done. And unfortunately, for us, the effect has, travel advisories. So Ugandans, if you're here in Uganda, you can't go to the US, you can't go to Canada. There are certain countries in Asia where you can't go. For business people, that has an impact. We've also had disruptions at the border. We close our border with DRC and we trade quite a lot with DRC. So trade disruptions as a result of that. But perhaps the most obvious and hardest hit sector is tourism. So summer, what they call summer, is usually the peak of the tourism sector. And that's between June and August. So right now, if tourists can't come to Uganda because flights are not coming to Uganda, or they've been told if you go to Uganda, you can't come back to your country. When you come back, you go quarantine for 21 days or 30 days, then it makes people think twice about coming here, okay? The tourism sector is still optimistic. The tourism board has been assuring people that Uganda is safe. But again, unfortunately, because of some of the actions that have been taken, there is going to be a hit on that.
95% of the money, we are going to spend it on either the ATMs or the enablers. We are talking of the ATMs in the form of agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral beneficiation, and science, technology, and innovation.
You've heard it.
That's where we are spending something like 8 trillion, and then the rest of the money out of the 57 trillion is spent on the enablers. That is infrastructure, making roads, electricity, irrigation, industrial parks, getting all the things which will facilitate those 4 drivers of growth to work. So, and the main question people usually ask, so what is new? And I will end with that. What is new is that government is committed to implementing certain things, painful things, so that we are able to achieve the things we are talking about. The first one is budget discipline and accountability. Each of the accounting officers is going to sign on a budget discipline and accountability charter going forward, which has 5 rules on the commitment of government. There is another reform on trade order, enforcement of trade order, ensuring that we get some orderly way of doing business in Uganda. This tendency of everybody saying I'm an orphan, I'm a widow, so I should say in the middle of the road, I should make a noise because I'm looking for money, walking around with some loudspeaker. That business is not good, and it's actually affecting our ability to grow and attract serious investors. We are also going to re-engineer the way we manage our state-owned enterprises so that there is value creation, there is good corporate governance and oversight, and there is accountability. We have a challenge with our public enterprises. I think we have been hearing a lot of things going on, and some people think that's the best way we can do. No. We need to get these state-owned enterprises in energy, in finance, in water, in everywhere, a whole spectrum. We have over 77 enterprises. But the way we are managing, many of you don't know even their budgets. Some of them have started even to do CSR. But most importantly, we are going to improve on implementation discipline, execution discipline. In terms of the budget, I would say that the priorities are generally aligned with what we think as a sector. Of course, if I do a good analysis, I think that 10.2% growth rate is extremely ambitious. Even with the oil, I think it's would need the miracle to jump from 6.4 to 10.2. I would say the investment in the work creation programs like Emyoga and so on, the 2.5 trillion is something that we appreciate. I just hope that we reduce inefficiencies there in terms of how those funds are administered. I also think that we need to invest more in improving the cost of doing business.
With the reforms that we're talking about, we see it's going to help reduce the debt burden and therefore deploy more money for development.
The problem is not the budget. The problem is the behavior of our public sector. There is public waste, there is non-performance, and there's also a problem of poor pay in the public sector. I have personally walked to the PSST's office and I have said, Rama, if you are going to ever make a change in this country, the first reform we must have is public sector pay. I do not understand how you give somebody an SUV that costs 1 billion shillings and then you pay them 600,000 shillings a month. It doesn't make sense to me. So that is a political decision that has to be made. So I have 4 points that I would say on things we should do differently. One, can we restructure public sector pay to address corruption? We must improve public investment service delivery and follow the National Development Plan. I think when the NRM focused at Changwanzi, His Excellency added a 10th priority, and that is fighting corruption. You will not fight it unless you pay people properly. 3, Mike Onyitegeka, you referred to this. Can we address taxes that impact financial inclusion, especially on digital transactions? We are talking about financial inclusion, but then we are not doing that. 4, if Uganda is going to achieve that 10x growth, surprisingly, the investment must be made elsewhere. Okay? The investment must be made in the social services. It must be made in a better education system and in better health services. Our investment in social services, our investment in education, we call it the broken window theory. We have a broken society. We need to invest in education, we need to invest in social services to have a better society.
But the case for budget discipline, it renders us as Ugandans quite useless when we see the same money that is collected from the taxpayer being wastefully, and I say wastefully, used by those who can use it. The PSST called it budget games. When we tried to hold Parliament to account last year, we paid the price for it. But we see how taxpayer money is abused on a daily. And we tell those stories and we pay the price for telling those stories. It's not that we don't support the tax policies and the tax regimes and all that. But how is that money being used? The public wants to see accountability of that expenditure. The public wants to see why is it necessary for the supplementary budgets that the PSST has talked about. Yesterday it was presented. How soon before a supplementary budget is passed? And then again we have to ask those questions. So the question for us is government actually going to walk the talk? Because that's what it is. He's talked about execution, because we all know that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And in this case, in the boardrooms and in those silent rooms, everything that has been said here, we hope that government is actually going to walk the talk. But otherwise, as media, we will continue to do our job of holding government accountable. The classified expenditure that nobody knows anything about, but it goes way above what should be spent on education, what should be spent on health, what should be spent, and also the supplementary budgets for individual organizations. When you think about the money that is spent on a hospital, on Entebbe Road, and you think about all the health centers within Uganda, you're like,
We must ask questions. And of course, we are the ones who will be slapped for asking the question, but that is our mandate, to hold government accountable.
And that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Business Now. For more updates and stories regarding Uganda's economy and the wider markets, you can follow me on Malcolm Sime or at X, and be sure to catch full episodes and replays on NTV Uganda's YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe for more business content, interviews and analysis. And for convenient banking solutions, business support and financial facilitation, visit any Absa Bank branch nationwide and ask about that. Business Now is proudly supported by Absa Bank Uganda. Good night and see you next week. Next up is NTV Tonight.